Oh, I gotta close this. I think.
There we go. Wow.
All right.
You're going to want to turn that on so you're not on mute.
Ooh, it's on. We are live. It says live in the corner. Eek.
26 viewers. Somebody's
Oh,
watching.
oh. Let's go over here.
I'll see it on your channel. There it is.
Just a second, guys and gals.
All right, I'm disconnecting.
Oh, that's not what I wanted. This one. Need that. Hey! I'm nervous. Can you guys send me some emojis of encouragement in the chat?
Oh, cow.
Yeah.
See if I can make this big.
Yes, Brian. Thanks, Brian. Yes. Oh. We're making the chat bigger so we can see all your emojis better. Yes. Oh, it's not scrolling down. Hey, thanks, David from Australia. And G. Ledesma for all the crowns. Yes, thank you. We're just kind of letting it soak in for a minute. Do you want to keep that?
Hey, Camo dude. Yeah, the views aren't so bad here in Sedona.
Yeah, we're coming to you guys from Sedona, Arizona right now. You guys are the lucky ones who are already tuned in because that view's going to be gone by the end of this live chat.
Good place to be. Those are some great emojis.
I love emojis. That was like the best prompt ever. You guys are amazing.
Fender's in the van sleeping.
We took Fender on a ride today and got him good and worn out. He loves Sedona just as much as we do. So in Sedona, weather is today, and it's warm and pleasant in the daytime, like 60s, and then it gets a little chilly at night. So once the sun starts going down, which it's going down, it's more like 40s, and then it'll dip down into the 30s overnight. But beautiful riding weather.
It might snow tomorrow.
Yeah, there's a storm that's about to come through, which is perfect because it stormed like 2 days before we got to Sedona, and then it stopped so we could get a week and a half of riding, and then I think we're going to leave town in the next couple days, which would be choice.
We did not go to RTR, but we do have some friends there right now. Yep. Go. Novice MTB or your friends are coming here in March. They are lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a magical place.
Ooh, thoughts on riding the Baja Divide. Okay.
Peter, thanks. I'm glad you like the teas.
Speed hump. I'm not sure how to say that. Sorry. Bring that question up in 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and I will answer that on the live chat about the Baja Divide.
Yeah. Can we start jumping in now?
Yeah, it's 6 o'clock.
Quit dilly-dallying. So welcome, everybody. I'm Tess from Dusty Betty. I've got my husband, Steve, here with me. He's going to help me manage questions and stuff that you guys have in the chat. And we're going to talk about some of our lessons learned from our first ever bikepacking trip. So just a little bit of background on Steve and I. We've been backpacking since, I don't know, I started backpacking in my teens. Steve probably started backpacking even a little bit younger. So we had the gear for backpacking before we started bikepacking, which was a huge advantage. We had a lot of time to search out the gear that we wanted, but one thing that was missing in our gear setup was a way to carry our backpacking gear on our bikes. So that's why we partnered with Oveja Negra. We had seen their bags before. Yeah, we got her. And Lane from Oveja Negra, if you're there, make sure you chime in and say yo. So we partnered with them because we love their products. And one thing that you guys should know is when I partner with a company, I don't just partner with anyone. I'm not afraid to say no to a company, and I have said no to companies before, but Oveja Negra makes great, really quality products that I love, and we really enjoyed partnering with them for this series, and we're looking forward to using that gear on many future bike packing trips. So if you guys want to support Oveja Negra, because they support us and make great stuff, make sure that you use the coupon code DustyBetty10 at ovejanegrabikepacking.com. Did I get that right?
I know what you're thinking.
We'll link it.
You're thinking if I use Dusty Betty 20, maybe I'll get 20% off, but it doesn't work that way.
I don't think that code's in the system.
They are super awesome. They make great bags. If Lane's here and chimes in, you can ask her questions about their products and stuff.
Yeah.
It made that trip possible.
Yeah, and they're a great little company out of Salida, Colorado. They're a small operation, and it's really been cool to talk with them and hear how much goes into choosing the material that they use, the zippers and the zipper pulls, and what they treat the fabric with. And, you know, they try to keep as much of their production in the States, and a lot of the supplies and things that they use to make it. They try to keep as much of that in the States as possible. And they're just a great company with a lot of integrity, and they make some awesome stuff. So, hello everyone who's chiming in. I love seeing everybody jump in the chat and say hello.
We have some funky lighting. Oh yes, that is funky. Let me dial it down a little.
I'll turn that down. When we had the daylight to help us, it was a little bit better, but maybe turn off that one and we'll just go with this guy.
Turn off which one?
That one, because that one's like in the middle. This is what happens when I go live, you guys. I'm used to being able to edit this stuff out, so bear with me.
Oh, much better.
All right. Oh, you know, another shout out that I need to is to our friend Paul, because we're at Paul's house right now and we're using his internet. So yeah, we use our phones for internet, and they're great in some areas and a little bit spotty in others, but we knew that with a live chat, we were going to struggle with lag. You know, if there's the chance we could struggle with lag anyway. And so we really appreciate Paul for letting us use his house and his internet. And you guys will get to see him in a couple videos, because he's been riding with us like almost every day since we've been in Sedona, and it's been really great to have a friend here to play with. So yeah,
looks pretty good for a webcam. We'll keep playing with technology and get fancy one day.
Yeah, it was like, ooh, do we wait to do a live chat till we've figured out how to do, you know, other cameras and stuff, or do we do a live chat? And we just thought, let's do it. So it'll get better.
Yeah, so here we are coming at you live from Sedona, Arizona. A beautiful place. This is not a bull on my shirt. It's an Oveja Negra. It's a black sheep. Negra means in Spanish.
And this live chat and our bikepacking series is brought to you by Oveja Negra. They made it possible for us to bring this to you when we did. So yeah, it's been awesome. So I've got Steve here to like keep me on task. I'm nervous, so he's gonna keep me like
He's the racehorse and I'm the goat that calms her down.
Yeah, you know, like racehorses, they put a goat in the stall with them to calm their nerves, because having another living presence, you know, kind of keeps them calm. So Steve's he's my goat, my racing goat. Isn't that romantic?
And tech support.
Yeah. All right, so we probably ought to start diving in, I guess.
Do it.
Let's get through all the lessons learned stuff so we can chat and answer some more questions for you guys. And will you keep an eye on the chat for me?
Definitely.
To go through this. Steve's going to jump into and give some of his thoughts on the lessons learned as well as I go. But yeah. All right. So lesson learned bike packing, lesson learned number 1 is to adjust your expectations about the riding. Bike packing riding isn't going to be as playful and fast and exciting as just a regular trail ride. It's more of just a cool way to get somewhere. It's like backpacking, but you're rolling. And so it is really fun, but it's kind of a different animal. But that was, that was something that took a little bit of an adjustment. It took me like probably the first half hour to kind of get used to, oh yeah, I probably don't want to be hopping off of stuff a ton because I don't want to like buzz my seat bags on my tires and stuff.
But you did anyway.
I did a little bit.
Jumping off all these little rocks.
I was trying to like test the limits, but once I realized where they were, I kind of dialed it back in. But yeah, so that was lesson learned number 1. I've got notes. Okay, so lesson learned number 2 for me was that rear suspension isn't super necessary when you're bike packing. The riding is a little bit slower, a little bit more careful because you've got all this gear with you, and so the rear suspension doesn't help you out much. And the other thing is when you compress your suspension and start to get into it a little bit, it starts buzzing on your seat bag a little bit, possibly if you're carrying a seat bag. So Steve and I both ended up like at least partially or fully locking out our rear suspension anyway. Now, it would be amazing to have a dedicated bike packing bike, and maybe that will happen someday, but for now, it just made sense to use the bikes that we had. As we were kind of preparing for this trip and doing a lot of research, a lot of people said online the best bike to bike pack with is the bike you already own. And so there is some wisdom in that you just line upon line, one thing at a time.
We bikers will take a sliver of an excuse to get another bike and turn it into a necessity.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a cool mentality in the bike packing world is they make do with 15-year-old technology, and they're proud of it. They're not buying brand new bikes every 6 months like a lot of us are. And there's actually a really cool simplicity, and it takes a lot of the pressure off, and you value products that are going to last a super long time. I know we're all kind of sick of having 900 different standards in the mountain bike world. The bike packers have got it figured out, and they move at a slow pace, and
they know what works, and
they are creative, and they don't care about what other people think about their bikes. They just take the bike that they have and go with it.
Yeah, and I really admire that because here Steve and I are we're kind of courting what our next trail bikes are going to be, and then we've got friends who, like Steve said, are on these just really beautifully simple older bikes, and they fit the bill great for trail biking. So, hey, trail features.
Brian's
I agree.
In the house. Hey,
yes.
Brian.
BKC.
Speed bump. I got your name right now. I'll say it correctly. Yeah, they do love simple bikes, less things to break. They prefer cable disc brakes. They prefer, a lot of them prefer a rigid fork, less to break that way.
Just with really fat tires.
Yeah, a lot of them that go internationally prefer wheel sizes and tires that they can get in other countries. Because, I mean, if you're in the middle of Bolivia, you're not going to find a Maxxis Recon in a 650 B plus size and a 2.8 wide tire. You're just not going to find it. And so a lot of the things they think about are very different than the things that we in the States think about, or in the UK or Canada, when we're just geeking out on the latest thing that was announced yesterday and now we've got to have it.
Yeah, it's just a different approach. They're very resourceful, and yeah, it's been cool. And I'll be honest, even though I say, we don't have, dedicated bikes, there is some discussion going on about how could we fit 2 more bikes in the van? What could we get rid of, and how could we redesign? I don't know. So who knows? That may be in the future.
Yes, Lucas, our backpacking and camping gear was all ultralight. It was
yeah.
Why don't you talk about what you think the weight of all your gear was minus water?
Yeah, so I've got pretty good intuition about the weight of my gear. Like when Steve and I first started getting into ultralight backpacking in our late 20s, like we had a kitchen scale. Like I'd weigh my toothbrush and like decide how much of a handle to cut off. And, this beanie weighs less than that beanie. And this stuff sack is lighter than the other one. Like we would geek out to the nth. Like, I've kind of found like a happy medium now, like to try and be healthy about it. But I used to be able to go on an overnighter with like an 8-9 pound pack, which is a little bit crazy. But so when you watch the video of the gear that we took on the trip, it looks like a lot of gear, but you have to kind of get in the mindset that a lot of that is ultralight gear. So my pack, oh, that's my phone. Oh, that's Dad. Hi, Dad. I'll get to your question later. Oh, P.S. Thanks everyone for keeping it PG because I've got family, including some nieces and a nephew tuning in. Where was I?
We're talking about weight.
How much I think my gear weighs. So my intuition, accounting for the fact that I have some bike tools and things like that, extra inner tube that I wouldn't take backpacking, I think that my gear minus water, it was probably around 16 pounds, maybe 17. And that's not a lot. Water weight is always changing, so we don't really take that into account, even though you feel it when you're carrying 7 liters of it. But yeah, what do you think yours weighed?
I carried the camera gear trail features. So yeah, mine was a little over 16. We had a little 20,000, I can't remember, whatever hour, kilowatt hour, whatever battery to charge the GPS at night, the phones, to charge the cameras, to charge everything. Keeping all that charged up, that was a ordeal in and of itself to film the experience.
I think I carried the spare batteries because they don't weigh much, and then he had the big, it's smaller than a brick, but it's kind of a brick. Steve carried that, and that was a lot more weight than the individual camera batteries.
I was still under 20 pounds, so probably our bikes were probably in the 45 to 50 pound range, which is significant.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not going to give that away. I'll tell that
anyway, but
lesson learned later.
I mean, my sleeping bag probably weighs like less than 1.5 pounds. Our shelter weighs 1 pound, if that. So
we're not weight weenies on our bikes, but we are definitely weight weenies on our bike packing.
Yeah, because when there's this whole balance in backpacking with like luxury versus luxury in camp versus luxury and comfort on the trail. And the lighter you can travel during the day, the farther and more comfortable you'll be. So take some trial and error to kind of find the balance in that. Okay. So another lesson learned was where you carry the weight on your bike matters immensely. Like the ideal place to have weight on your bike is low and toward the middle. I didn't really have a way to get much of the weight low on my bike. My bike couldn't really accommodate a frame bag that goes kind of between the top tube and the down tube with a full suspension. You can get custom ones made, which is awesome, but that wasn't something we were ready to dive into yet. So the closest to the middle of my bike was my stack packs that sit on my top tube. So that's where I tried to put the heaviest stuff that I had. But I experimented a little bit. I played around with where the weight was. I had a lot of my food on my fork at first, and I could feel just riding around the parking lot that it was kind of heavy. So where there should be some experimentation with where you carry the weight on your bike.
With a frame bag, I could have got rid of my backpack. And we're going to be doing more bike packing. And if we do a lot more, I will either get a custom frame bag or I will get a hardtail so I can have a bigger frame bag. You can put water in there. You can put food in there. All that heavy stuff down at the bottom bracket, super good place to put it. The Oveja Negra packs we had were awesome. But my front end, I strapped those water bottle cages on my forks and put all my food in there. And the front end was so heavy, like I could go up the steepest thing ever, and the front wheel would not lift. It was just glued to the ground. And then coming down, like the back was skipping. So I just thought, like, what could I do? Like, I could not get enough weight on the back of my bike. So a frame bag is the way to go, and we will be getting some before our next couple trips, hopefully. But yeah, I'd love to have a bike packing bike that I just kind of left set up, loaded with the gear. Then when we go on a trip, it's not a big, it probably took us 3 or 4 hours to outfit our bike and put stuff on it and Try putting the oranges in the forks. No, that's too heavy. Try putting it in the snack pack. And we moved it all around to kind of see how it would be.
Stu thinks I'm crazy, but I love it. It's fun. Like I was like on cloud 9 playing with where to put everything.
The gear was fun playing with those bags. How did you fight fatigue and recover daily? Let's take a break for that question.
Yes.
Because that was a real thing.
A really big thing for us, I think we had to go into it pretty prepared physically. We hadn't been bike packing, but we were well acquainted with doing 30+ mile days. Like we try to put down a good 30+ mile ride once or twice a month. So that is going to go a long way. And there's nothing that's going to make up for that if you don't start with some base level of fitness that way.
How about when you were halfway through the day and you're about to bonk and you're just feeling tired? Did you bonk at all? Bonk's the term we use when you're just totally out of energy and you've got nothing left in the tank.
Probably when it felt the hardest was on the second day. You know, when you first hop on your bike, how it kind of takes you like the first 20 minutes to kind of get going. Like wasn't quite getting going. You know, I wasn't on fresh legs anymore. And so that was the hardest. I ended up relying on that Coke that I drank in Superior, which was not the most elegant solution, but it
lifted
did the
your
trick.
spirits.
Another thing too that I will talk about that I feel like is relevant to this was, one of my lessons learned was to keep moving. You know, when you're on your bike, even if you're going slow, just keep moving. If you have to get off your bike and hike it, which sometimes it happens, you know, you don't want to spend all your strength on every technical sprint, even though you want to kind of test your limits and do some of them so you can see what you can do. But if you have to get off and hike your bike, do it, but keep moving and take breaks when you need to. So this kind of comes back to the question, how do we fight fatigue? You know, we took breaks when we knew we needed them, but we pushed ourselves to keep those breaks very short. And like, honestly, the longest breaks we took were long because we were filtering water. Other than that, it was like 2 10-minute breaks all day long, like even for lunch. We had to keep going and take breaks when we needed to, but they had to be brief and we had to push it.
We didn't use any supplements or caffeine pills or anything. Something we'd forgot to bring that would have been smart are salt or electrolyte pills, especially in the desert. Enough of our snacks had salt and electrolytes in them, so we were okay with that. But there's definitely room to learn more on supplements and all that stuff. I mean, that's a whole nother world to go into.
I did take some magnesium at night. I will say that kind of helps my muscles recover quite a bit. I take magnesium glycinate or glycinate. I don't know how you say it, but that kind of helps my muscles recover a little bit. And it helps me not feel quite as sore in the morning when I take a little bit of that.
So I think one way to finish up on that thought of fatigue in the day is we have experienced fatiguing ourselves. And whether that was hiking 22 miles a day back when we were backpacking a whole bunch or riding 35, 40-mile days and just knowing where your limit is. I think one thing that's really I've seen a lot of improvement on Tess is when she started, like if she's a beaker full of 100 milliliters of fluid, she thought at 20 that was her limit. And maybe it was when you started and you didn't have the muscles yet. But as she learned to push herself, she realized, whoa, I can go to 50 and I still have more in the tank. Whoa, I can go to 70 and I still have more in the tank. And kind of learning where your limit is there is a very beneficial way to do that. Because if you don't know that, you can push yourself beyond the limit, or you could give up way early before you even get close to that limit. So knowing that and being in tune with your body and listening to what it's saying and trying to kind of feel it out.
But we had to push it. We really had to push it.
Yeah, but we did. Our body was tired, but we weren't much slower, to be honest. Our body just was like, okay, this is how it's going to be. Here we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was amazed. Bobby, thank you. That was a really nice comment. Someone asked where Fender stays when we go backpacking. It depends on where we are. Usually, we can work out that he stays with either family or friends. I prefer when he's with someone I know, but
he was with some fellow RVer friends. How cold was it at night? It got down to the 40s. It didn't even get below freezing, which was great. If you do use those Sawyer filters we use, you should put them in a Ziploc bag and throw them in your sleeping bag, because if they freeze, we're not sure if they still filter or not. It's kind of iffy, and Sawyer says the same thing. And how about foods? For foods, that is one of the hardest parts about doing this, especially if you're new to it. But I would do anything that requires just add water.
The less water and fluid you're carrying, even in your food, the better.
Yeah.
Granted, we had granola bars and things like
and
that.
cheese.
But we've had a lot of time to experiment and find out what works for us, what's worth it, that's not dehydrated. But yeah, the less water you're carrying, the better.
Maybe we'll do a little video on that one day.
Oh, and here's another thing is, like, I know some people who, when they're going on a trip with their partner, like one of them packs all of the food. No. At least for us, that doesn't work for me, because you're going to be so hungry and so tired. If you got too much food that your partner or your spouse packed for you, you're going to be mad at them because you're carrying the extra weight. And if they didn't pack you enough food, you're going to be mad at them because you're starving. So my rule is everybody has to pack their own food.
Matt wants to know, did the chickens have large talons? And if you took your bike off any sweet jumps? No, but we did fight some wolverines with the freaking 12 gauge. What do you think? All right. Let's see. Thanks, Speed Bump, for tuning in. We will definitely post this later. What's the next lesson learned?
Okay, next lesson learned. Have a shakedown ride if you can. We are bad examples about this, so learn from us. We were really lucky because our packs were so good about staying put. Like, once you'd cinched the straps in place, it was like, which I was expecting to have to monkey with them a little bit more during the day. So it occurred to me to share this as a lesson learned because I could see the potential pitfalls. So I recommend, if you're going to bike pack, to do a shakedown, even if it's just a trail ride with all of your gear on your bike. We lucked out, but yeah.
In fact, your first shakedown, this is how we recommend it for backpacking, is find somewhere you can camp near your house, maybe like a 3-mile ride. Ride in close to evening, set up camp, use all your stuff, and then ride out. I mean, if the worst thing ever happened, or you forgot your stove, or you forgot to bring your food or your water or your filter, you can still go home and be okay. And then you just slowly extend how far away from home you go. And that takes a lot of the anxiety out of it for a lot of people. So anyway, yeah.
Thanks to Crushing Dad. He's saying, everybody hit the like button. Thanks.
All right, lots of good stuff. Which battery pack did we use? Donnie, I will put that, or Tess will put that in her gear page. Why don't you tell them about that?
Oh, yes. All the gear that we had, other than things like our individual clothing, but the main pieces of gear are on dustybetty.com/gear, and that will be linked in this video later.
Wow, that video is awful. You guys are putting up with a lot. Thank you. That webcam does not like dark situations.
We will work on that.
I'm going to play with that for just a sec while you share your next thought.
Okay. Next lesson learned. If you are going to, whoa, that is way too much. Low light and fuzzy is better, I think, than that. We'll just go with it. Sorry, guys. It's hard too, because like our live streams will probably be using a different internet connection every time. It's going to be tricky, but we'll figure it out eventually.
We're filming with a potato tonight, as you can see.
We'll put the link on my gear page.
Are we married? Yes, we've been married for 13 years. It's been the best, and it just keeps getting better.
Yeah, we like it. We dig it. So my next lesson learned is, if you are going to bike pack with a carbon frame trail bike like we did, protect your frame as much as possible. We did a pretty good job of this. We used some helicopter tape. That's also on my gear page. But there was one spot that was a little bit funky shaped, and I was like, I don't feel like taking 20 minutes to cut out pieces for this spot. I skipped it, and it rubbed the gloss off of my paint on that spot pretty noticeably. So that was a bummer.
It's funny because the hardcore bike packers, want their bike to look like a worn-in baseball mitt. Like the more scratches it has, the more paint that's missing, the more rust, the more cred you have because you took that to the ends of the earth and back. But they don't use carbon bikes that where you can see the carbon poking through afterwards. We should have taped our bikes the day we got them, but we didn't. And we have a link to that tape on her page.
Okay. Another one that I kind of touched on a little bit is that just get okay with walking your bike sometimes. If you're having to make a lot of mileage in one day, it's not worth sessioning stuff. It's not worth spending your strength on every single techie scramble. So just get okay with walking some stuff just to keep yourself moving.
That was hard for me because I was like, I got this climb. I know I can do it. And I could even load it up, but I couldn't do 50 of those every day. So you learn to like, as stuff comes up, you just hop off your bike and get right up it. And what's sad is like 2 weeks after that trip, I'd still had that bad habit. So when I wasn't loaded, I'd be like, whew, that's going to be hard to get up. I'm just going to start walking. And I'm never one to walk without trying it first. And I had to reprogram my brain to be like, no, you don't have your bags. Get your butt up there. Yeah.
Yeah. Another lesson learned is, this is something we learned from backpacking as well, but just research your route and know where your water sources are and calculate how much water to carry, because how much does water weigh? Is it like 2 or 3 pounds per liter?
It is, sorry, I was laughing at novice MTBers. N+1 bike syndrome hitting us yet. We had to sell about 9 bikes to be able to hit the road when we sold our house before we went in the Airstream. And we said we only get 1 bike each. Yes, N+1 is hitting us. We now want a separate bike each specifically for bike packing, but there's a lot of reasons we shouldn't do that. So anyway, but yes. So and I'm going to tag onto that. How much does water weigh? I can't remember. It's like 8 pounds a gallon. And no matter how much planning you do before, no matter how much you look at it in Google Earth, no matter how many trip reports or videos you watch on the route you're going to do, you still only have 30% of the info. And that's something people that you need to be careful of, because you always go into these trips thinking you know what it's going to be like, and then you get there and it's totally different. And no amount of preparation can prepare you for that, except for skills. Like the best piece of gear you can bring is in your head. It's knowing how to filter water, it's knowing how to navigate, it's knowing how to handle the situation when the unexpected happens. Because I mean, we were going off maps that were 5 years old. We were going off GPS coordinates that say there may or may not be water here. And there's an element of risk with that, unless like you're paying a guided tour who brings your food to you and all that, which is fun, but a totally different experience. Just take it easy on people that do go bikepacking, because there's not enough info out there to know what it's really going to be like. You do your best, you research it all, you have backups and redundancies, but when you get there, you're going to find the unexpected. Something bad will happen. For us, it was not being able to cross that river. We probably spent 3 hours there on day 3, and that really slowed us down and became a problem, but we had to roll with it. Anyway, that's my thought on that.
Can you check on that?
It won't let us do a super chat. Oh, I know nothing about that. I'm sorry, but thank you for trying it out and for clicking that. We appreciate it.
I'll try to get that figured out the next time.
2.2 pounds per liter. Why are we afraid to kiss on camera? Not answering that one, Matt. We're not afraid, but this channel is about women's mountain biking, not our marriage, which is great.
And David, your thing about the metric system, I'm with you. If the US would adopt the metric system, I would be on board 100%.
Wait, that works. What are you trying to do?
Sorry, hang on a second, guys. I'm trying to see if I can tweak that setting. I don't know if it'll work midstream.
Super chat. We don't know. We will research that, and maybe we'll have super chat enabled for the next one. But thank you for thinking of us that way.
Yes, thank you. I'm sure we'll be doing more of these.
Here, I'll handle that. You do the
Okay.
next.
I think.
Oh, there you go. Trail features. You're the man.
Hey, nice.
He did something with $5 up there.
Thank you.
Ooh, heading to
Wait.
Sedona for a week in March. I got that. You can do the next one. Any suggestions for best trails hit? Yes, I will answer that in a minute. He's saying it's working fine.
Cool. These trail features. We're gonna go riding with you sometime. I'm just to the end of my list. Was there anything else you wanted to cover with lessons learned?
The tip is it's all about momentum. These bikes are like trains, and on the flats you get going and then you see a hill coming. If you can keep your momentum, you'll make it up more hills than you think, even at you feel like you're gonna peter out and not make it, but the momentum and the weight keeps pushing it up. And my buddy gave me that advice before we left. He said, no matter what speed you're going, keep that momentum over obstacles and up things. So, and I also learned that I was like, when I mountain bike without my gear, I have a really high cadence. I spin a lot, and that helps me save energy. I did not spin a lot with a heavy bike. I ended up being in a hard gear and pushing it, and that actually worked better for me, which is kind of weird, but yeah. Anyway, okay, so best. Go ahead. Did you find
I
something?
got a question from my dad, and he said, "How important were good genes to your first bikepacking trip?" Very important.
Genetic genes, not Levi's.
Yes. Yes. I have a good genetic background, and I come from good, hardworking, farm stock people. So thank you, Dad and Mom.
So Shaylin wants to know, she's headed to Sedona for a week in March. Any suggestions for the best trails to hit? It really depends.
Yes.
Sedona is hard riding, very hard, harder than Moab in my opinion.
But you're in luck right now because they've had occasional rain, so a lot of the loose silt and shaly crap is washed out. So this is a good time to do it.
If you have exceptional bike skills, if you can do multiple 1 to 2 foot drops and handle rocks bigger than a bowling ball and stuff steeper than 45 degrees, my favorite is Highline. There's still a section on there, a 20-foot section I'm too scared to ride. I know I could ride it, but the consequence of crashing is not worth doing. But anyway, they say any trail that starts with an H is fantastic.
I like Hogs a lot.
Hogs was super fun, super technical. These are extremely hard double black diamond trails. So if that's what you're looking for, I recommend those. We did Hangover. I didn't like it. I'm not a good enough rider, and I'm not willing enough to put myself on the line because they're next to 400-foot cliffs where if you lean right or clip the pedal, you're dead. And so to me, that doesn't bring any more enjoyment. It was beautiful, and I'd recommend Hangover as a hike. But as a ride, we ended up pushing our bike or walking our bike for probably 2 miles.
And it was because of the exposure. Like the most exposed part, a lot of it, the riding probably would have been a beginner trail if not for the exposure, because it was just like I'd hear my pedal just barely brush across a rock, and I was like, "Woof!" If that rock was 2 inches taller, I'd be like down at the bottom of the ravine. So it wasn't that the riding was the super crazy hardest, but the consequences were so high, it kind of took a lot of the fun out of it for me. But Hogs was great.
Use your apps. MTB Project is great down here. Trail Forks is great. We love them both, but MTB Project is so user friendly, especially for someone new to riding. If you like jumps and berms and really fast flowy stuff, like that's black diamond level, Pigtail is a great one. If you just like normal intermediate stuff with some rocks in it and some climbs and some descents, but nothing crazy, the Chuck Wagon area is really cool.
Yeah, all those trails kind of connected there on the west side of Sedona. That's just some good like general. There's chunks to kind of play around and launch off of stuff. but it's not super gnarly.
Slim Shady and Templeton.
Oh yeah, that's really
super fun. Super
How
fun.
could we almost forget that? I love the Slim Shady Templeton loop. That is really fun.
Super fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough for that. But there's not a lot. There's one beginner trail, and it's really more intermediate. It's a beginner trail with intermediate pieces, and that's Bell Rock. Recommend that maybe for your first one. I think on MTB Project it's called Intro to Sedona. It's great. There's just a ton of hikers on there. And we recommend our friend Paul, whose house we're at right now, got us the Timber Bell as a gift. You're going to see that in more videos. So helpful in a touristy spot like Sedona, where you pass, 40 hikers every hour on the trail. If they hear the bell coming, it's not one where you push the little trigger. It's a cowbell that dangles from your bars that you can turn on or off. You just turn it on when you think people are coming. They hear you. They all clear out of the way, and you can keep on riding. That has been super awesome.
Brian Brezak, thank you so much. Thanks for checking that super chat for us.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thoughts on Captain Ahab in Moab? It was way harder than I thought it would be. Sedona's way harder than Ahab. At least all the trails that start with an H, way harder. And yes, Captain Ahab is very hard. If you've never been to Moab, don't just dive in and tackle the black diamonds right away. You need to learn how to react to the rock there. It's very different. So I would start with some intermediate stuff. Ride a few of those, and once you learn where you have traction, how to handle the sharp square edge rocks, how to handle the sand, how to handle ridiculously steep climbs, then go for Captain Ahab. I love that trail. It's one of my favorites.
I love Ahab. There's a couple things I still walk. Every time I do it, I ride more of it, but it feels pretty safe. There's nothing on Ahab that I feel like just dangerous on. And I will say it does seem a little easier than a lot of Sedona riding because it's mostly on rock. You don't hit dirt a lot, and sometimes the transitions in Sedona between rock and dirt, especially if it's really dry and silty, those can be a little tricky.
Sedona compared to Moab has more square edge rocks like bricks or cinder blocks style rocks in the trail. And there's a little more exposure on things, even if it's like 3 or 4 feet down into a gully. But if you hit it wrong and high sided and tipped over, you'll break your ankle. So if Captain Ahab's over your level, I would stick to Chuck Wagon area in Sedona. But Captain Ahab and any trail gets better the more you ride it. And one thing that really helps me, sorry to talk so much. I'm super excited about this.
I like having Steve here because I was super nervous.
One thing that's helpful for me is I tell myself I'm going to ride every obstacle that I feel safe with. So if I attempt it and I don't do it, I pick up my bike and I go back to the top and I'll attempt it 3 or 4 times until I get it. That forces me to look at it and see a line that's within my ability and say, oh, I could, if I was over here a foot, there's a little ramp there. I could do that. And when you force yourself to do that, these trails that are super hard become a lot easier. But don't push it and don't break your neck just because you're stubborn enough to just say, I'm going to ride it. But that's definitely a way that got me to do Ahab. I remember like 20 times ago, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to ride this whole trail. And I did. And now I know the lines and I can ride the whole trail first try without stopping, which is awesome.
I hope you guys like having Steve here because he's way better, like in the moment winging it. I was really nervous, so I'm really glad he's here because it kind of helps.
Alex Mescal, that was a good trail.
That was. We had a lot of fun there. Someone else said love their Timber Bell. Ernesto got into mountain biking because of us.
No,
you guys are awesome.
Yeah, maybe. You wish you could get a van like ours too. Life goals, Ernesto. Our van's 20 years old. It's not that special. Or sell your house and you can afford a sweet van.
That's the real secret. We don't own a home anymore.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kurt. Shout out to you.
And what's awesome about those Timber Bells is they're under $20.
Yeah, some of those bike wheels can be like $60. I'm
which
like,
are beautiful and cool.
yeah, yeah, they're very elegant looking, but it's like, I don't know.
Okay, a lot of people are asking where we're coming next. Why don't you
Okay.
talk about that?
Cool. So it is still a little bit chilly further north, so we're going to be hanging out in the Southwest for a little bit longer. We are going to spend some time in the Vegas area and do a little bit of riding there. If the good weather continues, we will probably zip up to St. George, Utah for a little bit, ride gooseberry and some other fun stuff there. We are looking pretty seriously at coming to the Mountain Bike Festival in Sedona, which is the very beginning of March. So if any of you guys are there, you'll have to look for us. Make sure you say hi if you see us. And then after that, we are going to be in Moab for at least a couple weeks in March. So that kind of carries us through the next couple of months. We're just kind of bouncing around a little bit in the Southwest while things be so chilly everywhere else. But yeah, I mean, let us know if you guys have any riding recommendations, especially for the Vegas area, which we haven't ridden. Even in St. George, like we've ridden St. George, but I've seen people post pictures of trails in St. George that hadn't even heard of. So we're definitely open to ideas for that.
And we will be doing meetups and group rides, and those will be posted on our Patreon.
Oh, Todd. Hey, Todd. He said he'll tow us into the Highline Descent. You can tow Steven to them, and then he will probably do all of them. Every time I do Highline, I do a little bit more, but I'm slowly desensitizing myself to the steep, gnarly stuff. It's getting there. I've come a long way in the last month or two.
We have a video on that coming.
Ooh.
I can ride the chute of Highline, and then that little switchback at the bottom of it, and then the chunky section, and then it's right after that that I'm too scared of. It's like the really rocky step with like 3-foot ledges, and then that super sharp right turn. That's the one. I'd love to see someone show me where the line is and then take that.
We do want to connect with you, Todd. Todd, are you our friend from Tucson, Todd? I think you are.
That's the Todd we're thinking of, who rides some awesome bikes.
If not, it's another cool Todd who we will also ride with.
That's right, Todd.
At the festival.
Let's do it. Okay, Epon asked a great question. If we had to take our bikepacking bikes through trails like Sedona, would our bikepacking rigs change from the Gila trip, and if so, how? You want to answer this? Go ahead.
Wait, no. Ask it again. That was like so much.
Okay. If we were doing a bikepacking trip through Sedona instead of our Gila trip, how would our rigs change?
If we could have dedicated rigs or our existing bikes?
I'll let you pick the answer you want on that.
Sedona would be a really hard place to bike pack. That's a big part of my answer. It would be so hard to bike pack here. I still think though you're riding so slow. I still stand by my thing about rear suspension. It just doesn't do you much good. And if you've got a seat bag, you can't really get into your rear suspension much anyway. So
it is Todd from Tucson. Hey, Todd.
Yay!
We both rode Switchblades today and filmed a review video on that. And stay tuned for that. That's coming. And partly because you love your Switchblade so much, and our buddy Paul loves his Switchblade so much, and anyone who has a Switchblade loves it so much. So we had to try it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm just gonna say it. If I could have a second bike, I want a Santa Cruz Chameleon. And I think the ideal bikepacking bike for me would be something like a Stash. It would be a 29 plus or a 650B plus. Probably at least 3-inch wide tires. And maybe like if we were doing international trips and bikepacking was our thing, it would be a fat bike, because sand will stop you dead in your tracks and completely destroy your progress. And a fat bike can keep going in places that other bikes can't.
And that can save you a lot of time, as we learned the hard way. If I could have a bike, I think it would be a hardtail. I like the Chameleon a lot too. I probably want to ride more hardtails before I was willing to like say what my dream one is. But it'd be fun to have a hardtail because I could have like a good sized frame bag on that, but still having like some, still having like a fork, having some travel up there. I could kind of like play around at the bike parks with it a little bit still. So it would be bike packing slash burr kind of thing. I don't know. That's my thought.
And that's why we like the Chameleon. It's got a super short chainstay. It'd be awesome for teaching us both how to manual better and bunny hop and just goof around better. It's a super playful bike that could also be awesome for bike packing. You could set it up single speed. It's lightweight, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I think that bike's cool. I think the Stash is amazing. Trek has a really cool bike that came out that has too steep of a head angle for me, but it has these orange aluminum racks built onto it. It's a hardtail and they bolted racks to it. And you could bolt a ton of really cool heavy gear on the back of the bike and have it carry it like a mule. So yeah, anyway, that would be cool. I like the wider tires for bike packing. I like the hardtail. I still would want a fork. So
yeah, I mean, because we can't have three bikes. We can't have like a fatty, fully rigid bike and a hardtail for playing around on, and our trail bike. So, it's hard when you don't have the space for, every bike that you want, because we want a lot of bikes.
So Paul's following up with this question, Epon, pretty much what you can carry on your back and a light roll on the bars for rough trails. Maybe. We haven't had we could carry everything on our back if we used our backpacking gear.
Mm-hmm.
And some people do that on their first bike packing trip, is they just load up a backpack and go. I think I'd still try to get as much on the bike as possible. If I were riding trails like Chuckwagon and Mescal and stuff like that, I would get a frame bag and not carry anything on my back. And I'd probably ditch the stuff on my fork lowers. There was just so much unsprung weight there. It was hard to get the fork to move because it was just a heavy thing.
Yeah, we actually had a really different experience because Steve had so much more weight on the front end of his bike. I was carrying, what were you carrying on your
my food, so it got
foods,
lighter every day, which was great. But yeah, surprisingly, the width of the fork wasn't a problem. There were one or two times I forgot I was a foot wide and tried to push it through a crack, and they scraped a little. And the hose clamps tying those onto the fork were fantastic. They never slipped once. But yeah, if I could get that off there and onto the back, that'd be better. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I could get more weight off my bars, but that would make it a lot more playful. How about a plus bike? Yes, I love plus bikes. Love them.
Mm-hmm. I'd probably, like, if I was gonna get a hardtail for bikepacking / that kind of stuff, I'd probably do at least 2.6 tires and maybe even 2.8.
And I would not want carbon for one of those. I'd love titanium because titanium rides sweet.
I've never been on a titanium bike.
You better not try it because then you'll want one. It rides a lot like steel, and I really like steel. But from what I've read about the Chameleon, it actually has a very forgiving feel. I don't know if that's because of the dropouts they use in the back or if there's no brace on like the seat stay. And so they've actually built a little bit of flex into the aluminum. And so it doesn't beat you to death. So I would rather have aluminum or steel. I would pick steel if I could get it the weight of aluminum. And I don't know, a lot of people say, oh, get a steel bike. Then if you're in Mexico and it breaks, some guy can weld it for you in the back of his shop. But I really doubt there's dudes out there with TIG welders with 4130 steel to put back together perfectly. So I don't know how much credence that really has, but I'll have to research it more. But carbon, I have nothing against carbon, and we have abused our Santa Cruzes, and they feel brand new. They're really amazing.
But because it's so much more expensive, like you kind of want to baby it, and it just doesn't, it just sucks to try and baby it more than you have to on a bikepacking trip when you've already got so many other priorities, like, you know, like food, shelter, warmth, things
And
like that.
things rub. Things are always rubbing it,
Yeah.
and that's not great for carbon.
So I'd rather have something I don't have to worry about. Even though I love carbon for my trail bike, it's a lot of fun. But I don't know, I'd be curious to ride an aluminum frame at some point. Hey Ben, our friend Ben from Tucson is tuning in.
The Yeti SB5 does do a decent job at sand. That was almost my favorite bike. I reviewed it but never published the video. The chainstays on Yetis are too long. For shrimps, shorties like us, they're super long.
They have like one chainstay length for every bike in their
17.2.
line.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe that feels awesome if you're 6'1", but if you're short, like getting the leverage you need to get the front end up, like, I don't know, it's a lot tougher. So it's just not, that chainstay length is tough for us shorties.
But that SB5 Plus is a sweet bike.
And I do love the suspension setup. It's really nice.
Have we seen the Salsa Blackboro? Is that the one that's like extended wheelbase with extra storage stuff? Or is that the one that's like super playful with short chainstays and a slack head angle? Salsa has one that for the first time in my life, I'm sort of interested in a Salsa. It looks pretty cool. Stupid Scum Josh, we love Kona bikes as well. Konas are amazing.
They're making some cool bikes.
The big Hanzo would be a fun bike packing.
I really want to hop on a Kona Process at some point. But I hopped on my friend who has one that is 2 or 3 years old, and it was still a blast. So
it wasn't a Kona Blast. It was a Kona Process 134. That's an inside joke. Kona made a bike called the Blast.
Oh, okay.
It was a blast.
That's why I have Steve here with me. I haven't been riding bikes that long. I don't get all the pink bike humor.
No, Ben, I don't think an inverted fork would be better. We definitely had to pump up our air pressures. I actually brought my shock pump with me, and I don't think I ever dialed it, especially because every day I had my food on my fork, and every day I would eat some of my food.
Changes.
Yeah, that's true. Like you could just add 15 pounds in a water stop, and then now your suspension's all
totally off. So
we never got it like dialed. Paul wants to do the Arizona Trail. We want to do that too, and we're in. So that'd be super hard. When you get to the Grand Canyon, because it's a national park and you're not allowed to bike there, you have to take your bike apart and pack it, hike it down to the river, and then hike back up the other side, put your bike back together, and then ride to the Utah border.
And that is quite a hike getting back out, you know, like wearing your bike on your back. Woo! But it'd be an amazing experience for sure.
All right. Yeah, Trek 1120. Thank you. With those cool orange racks. Those are sweet. Let's see.
Are we gonna try and end at 7? Is that the plan?
Oh shoot. I don't want to end. This is too much fun. I was gonna get a Chameleon, but I got a Diamondback Mason Pro instead. 27.5 plus, and it spec'd out very well. Awesome. Diamondback has been killing it with some great bikes lately. Let's see. All right. Kona Process 111 is amazing, and the 134 and the 153. I need to see what the Kona unit is. I'm not familiar with that bike.
Hey, you B1 biker. You just hopped on.
I think we're about ready to wrap it up. Does anybody have any other questions? Anything else you wanted to cover?
I don't think so.
This has been super fun.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I took over so much. This is Tessa's channel, but I just start geeking out on bikes and I can't button it.
I'm actually really glad because I'm learning more about bikes all the time, but I just don't have the amount of knowledge that Steve does. So I could do this just me, but I learn a lot too by having him here talking about it. So
well, 2 more questions that popped up. East Coast, possibly. It's harder to travel out there, but we will make it out there eventually.
Yeah, we will. It's a little bit trickier. There are a few things that make it tricky when you live in an RV.
An Airstream. Yeah.
So it makes it a little bit tricky, but Yeah.
So, how are you liking your wheels? People have asked.
I probably don't want to give that away because I think I'll address that in an upcoming video. I will say that I am loving them. Is that okay? Is that too much of a teaser? I'm loving them. No regrets. Oh, one thing that I will tell you guys is before I give feedback on my wheels, before I do a video on my wheels and my hubs, I want to. I've been having a problem with my Project 321 hub. They got a batch of bad pawls, and they usually do a really good job with their quality control, but they just moved their company from Central California to Oregon, and somewhere in the mix, a bad batch of pawls kind of slipped through, and those are the ones that are in mine. So the hub kind of flips and then ching clicks into place loudly and rather like jarringly. So I'm working on I need to get the new good pawls and get them in, and then I'd love to do a video where I follow up about the wheels as well as my Project 321 hub. So
I have the same wheels, but with an Onyx hub, and there is no better piece of bike gear than an Onyx hub. That is my
awesome.
favorite, hands down, my favorite component on any bike I've ever ridden. It's amazing. It's heavy,
amazing,
but it's
yeah.
amazing.
I mean, for me, I feel like I'm small enough that the extra weight could be significant. I hate to be too much of a weight weenie, but I really want to give the Project 321 hub a good shot, and their warranty guys were really helpful, and so I want to make sure that I get it working well before I give you guys a review on that. So the Onyx is absolutely amazing. So that is obviously a good buy, but I've heard really good things about the Project 321 as well, so I'm excited to get it working well and see how it goes.
How about, would you ever do the Baja Divide? That's the one in Baja, Mexico.
I don't know.
I would like to do more international stuff, but there's so much great stuff around where we live already that we haven't explored. In fact, before we bought the Airstream, we were going to go live in Europe for several years and do it there, or go to Asia or India or wherever. But then we're like, we don't even know our own country very well. Let's explore it some more. So we'll probably be doing more stuff in the States for a while, bikepacking.
But I want to do more international
Me
travel
too.
as the years go on, definitely. But yeah, there's plenty to explore here in the meantime. The other thing that makes it kind of tricky is, I work for myself doing Dusty Betty and our other YouTube channel, The More We Explore. And those are kind of passion projects, but Steve does have a regular 9 to 5 salary job. And so we have limited vacation time that we have to work with too. Some days that changed if these other passion projects allowed us to travel more and have a little more flexibility that way, that would be awesome. But for now, we kind of have to spend Steve's time off wisely.
So if I used to live in Mexico and I saw some scary things, as you can see in any country, if I had a guarantee that I would be safe for the Baja Divide, that we would both be safe going down and back, and I could get the vacation days, yes, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Mhm.
And I love group trips with like 7 to 10 people, but I don't know if that would work bike packing, because you all kind of have to be at the same level, not breaking. If someone's way faster than the rest, I don't know. I would love to do a big group bike packing trip.
But I feel like there's a lot more potential for things to go wrong bike packing even
Yes.
versus backpacking, because now you have not only like fitness levels and things like that, but you also have the potential for mechanicals. And like not everybody's bike may be in the same kind of shape, or maybe one person has something really important that starts going on the trip and that starts to affect everyone. And I mean, there's some amount of that, you kind of have to stick together and look out for each other backpacking. But when you're on bikes, these mechanical, devices, it adds a whole new element. And so it's kind of tricky to do it with other people. I don't know. I'd love to. B1 Biker says he has a Project 321 hub and he likes it.
Good.
Sweet. I'm glad to hear that.
You have the quiet pawls with magnet in them, or the older loud pawl design that's like i9? Yeah. You can, yeah, you're right. Group bike packing can help share the load by sharing things across.
That's true. Things like a shelter, you could fit quite a few people under one shelter. And, like Steve and I, just the two of us were able to share a stove. You could share that amongst even more people. So that's true. It's just you'd have to be really careful who you went with, and choose people who are kind of at your level. And we're not the most hardcore either. Like our friend Elliot is insane. Like he's amazing, and we've learned a lot about bike packing from him, but we couldn't go with him.
No,
bike packing,
we
there's
hold
no
him
way
back.
we could.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think the problems are with the new quiet pawl with the magnet in it. Instead of a spring in between each pawl, they use a magnet to push it away. Anyway,
So I'm excited.
Todd, we will see you in Sedona. Excited to ride with you.
Yes.
I think my final takeaway from bike packing is if you pick the right route, it is such an amazing experience.
I could see the potential for it to be a really bad experience if you didn't choose something that was the actual bike packing route, like that's why I think it's so good to do your research.
Yeah, go to bikepacking.com, see the routes there, go to the forums, lots of good info there. That's how we got started. We're going to be doing a lot more, but I would never just look up trail forks and be like, oh, I'll bike pack that trail. There's it's so different. So I would stick to what the bike packing people do. Anyway, fun chat.
Yeah, and I was just saying, like just to finish up, bike packing, like anything else in life, is just kind of a compound experience that reminds you to take the good with the bad, because amazing things are going to happen that you weren't expecting, and not amazing things that you weren't expecting are also going to happen. But if you take the good with the bad and you come in as prepared as you can, and you're willing to be flexible, that's another big thing, is just be flexible, and you take the good with the bad, and amazing stuff will happen. So thanks everybody who tuned in today. It's been really awesome to have you guys. Thanks so much for jumping in the chat and for supporting Dusty Betty and what I'm doing here and following my journey. I'm not a biking whiz or genius, but I'm learning, and it's really cool being able to share that with you guys. I really appreciate how many of you guys have connected with my story, and also our story, being able to travel and ride some amazing trails. So thank you all so much. Everybody have a good night. And I think we're going to
see if we can figure out how to stop this thing. We don't know how to stop it.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.